Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
So I'm going to give just a general overview of this game. So the first thing you do is you're going to have some cards, and let's say you have some cards in your hand. So the first thing you do is draft. You're going to take a card from your hand, and this will be the card that I'm going to play, and you would send the rest to your left. This is called card drafting, and you've seen this in a lot. So I'm keeping the card I want to play, but I have to give up the other options to the player on my left, and then they're going to play a card from their hand, everybody's going to switch. So eventually the cards will come back to you, but there will be fewer cards because other people have played cards. That's card drafting. So the first thing you're going to do on a turn is you're going to choose the card you want to play from your hand. Okay, I want to play this card and pass the rest on to the next player. You're also going to have this tracker at the bottom. So this is going to be the second thing that will happen. As you come up with these numbers, nothing will happen. But if it hits one of these points with the big squares, then something will happen. Either there'll be a conflict that will happen. I'll get into it in a few minutes. Fallout may happen. A random event may happen. You can see these things that will kind of happen as the game progresses. So that's the second thing you do. After drafting, you will look at this chart, and if it falls on something, then you will do it. This is the player board that the players will have as they go through the game. Now, as the game progresses, for purposes, you might have a card in the reserve, which would be here. So what you can either do is you can play a card from your hand. So let's say I have these 3 cards in my hand. I could play a card from my hand, or I could play the card in my reserve. So you're kind of holding this card back in your reserve because you're like, hey, I like this card. I want this card. I just don't need it right now. It'll be here in your reserve. So then you would play a card from your hand or your reserve, and that's the third thing you would do on a turn. Now, if you played a card from your hand, very easy, it would go on top of your discard pile. If you played the card from reserve, that's fine. You would play it like that, and then you would put a card into your reserve. So there's always a card in your reserve as you're going through. Then you get your card in your discard pile. Because you put this on top of it, you flip it over, and you do what it says. And you do the action that's on it. And you can choose to do the major or the minor action on it. So each card's going to give you 2 choices. So you can do the gather action, or you can do the command action at the bottom. So major or minor action. That's what you'll be doing in the game. So that's the 4 phases of a turn. Draw a card, your pre-action events, choose and pass, resolve your actions, and then a post-action event. So it's all printed right here on the player. The game will end when the tracker gets down here, and you'll go through this conflict, fallout, spoilage, and feed at the end of the game. You're going to get 2 players, 2 points for each remaining survivor, any VPs for any random events that may have occurred, and then whoever's furthest on the environment track will score VPs, etc. And then on the culture track, so on these 2 tracks here, you're going to score victory points as the game goes on. And then that will be tracked here. Most victory points is your winner. I'm going to go over just a couple concepts, a little small board here. So control or occupy is when you have a person on it. Now control is when you have more battle strength. You're going to have these little red dots that will be on here. That will be the strength that you have. If you have more strength than any other player, then you control it. So occupying is just having somebody there. Controlling is having more battle strength than the other person. So on these cards, you're going to see things like build, reinforce, regrow, excavate, command here at the bottom, research war, regrow, and excavate here at the bottom, gather. So when you play these cards, you'll be doing the actions. You can either do the major action or the minor action, whatever you want to do on the card or what better fits you. But that's how you can do it. So when we're in that phase I just showed you where you're playing these cards, these are now the actions that you would perform. I'm going to show you a few of these now. So when you do the gather action, you'll have these resources that will be out here on a tile. And what you would do is you just flip them over to the gathered side of it. So now it shows that you've gathered this, and it's to this side of it. So that's how the gather action will work. Now, if you're in a space like this, and you do the regrow and excavate, you can put a food out on that spot. If you happen to have an outpost there, then you can put 2 food out. So that's kind of how an outpost will help you there and help the places regrow. So that is regrow and excavate. Now you have actions called reinforce, and that will be a spot, let's say, where you have a bunker at. You can place a new survivor there. So let's say you want to put a new survivor out on that spot. You can definitely do that. And you can place a raw stone, metal, or oil in that spot. And then you would advance your culture track up, and that would give you additional culture. and that is the reinforce action, which would look like this. Then you have the build action, which when you play this card, and this will allow you to use the gathered resources, in this case, the oil and etc. that you have, and then you can build things out on the board. You might put an enemy out or a soldier or something. That'll allow you to build things as you're going through the board. Now, I'll just show you kind of an instruction manual, but these are the kind of things you can build, and they all have kind of like a different price to them. You can build bunkers, outposts, you can build an airship, etc. And that will just let you put more things out on the board. The command action, which will look like this, will allow you to take one of these and you put it out here and you can move things. Now, these airships are nice because they kind of move people around with you, of course, add to your battle strength. So you can always move 2 survivors with them if you want to move them around. So the command action, for all intents and purposes of this video, will allow you to move around the hexagons. The research action, which you see on this card, will allow you to go into your tech tree and you can start upgrading your technology, which will give you more powers as the game goes on. These will do different things, like gain +3 may purchase the technology. Once per turn, use any gathered resource as any resource type. More storage. Each of your airships contribute extra battle strength. So these are just technology that you can upgrade, and you'll do that utilizing the research. The last one you have is also on this card is War. This will be basically basic battles. There's not a whole lot of dice rolling or anything like that in this game. You just compare the battle strength of the 2 people, then you will just resolve the conflict. Now you have war cards that will do that, and there'll also be spots on this one where conflicts will occur and victory points can be assigned to it, so be aware of that happening. But you want to get that battle strength up in case a war would happen, and that would happen in any space that you have your people and your enemy. And that's kind of a general overview of what you're doing. So you'll be drafting these cards and utilizing the actions on them to move people around the board in order to score victory points. You probably have played a lot of games like this that you'll be utilizing, but the card drafting is the main mechanism, and then the battles of strength, what you want to do, the technology you want to get, how you want to upgrade those in this post-apocalyptic world.